Good evening. Welcome to our broadcast tonight, a night where the nation is mourning, a nation under a deluge. To quote the man in the big office, what began as a blessing is now becoming something else entirely unbearable. We shall be giving you all that and so much more in terms of coverage on the floods that are ravaging our country. Later on, we shall be having a conversation on autism and exactly why you need to be paying attention to that. It's been Autism Awareness Month this entire month of April, and we are wrapping up in style by going up and down a mountain, figuratively and literally as well. All that and so much more after all of these messages. But first, the highlights. The government issues a warning of forcefully relocating Kenyans residing in flood-prone areas to mitigate the impact of floods on the general public.
As citizens living in very dangerous places, and those are the most vulnerable at this point. And I'm happy the Minister for Energy is here, so that we can begin to inform citizens if they are in places that poses danger to them, we begin to relocate them.
Numerous friends and family members among the attendees at Sergeant Rose Nyawira's burial.
So to the family, I say again, poleni sana.
Sergeant Nyawira was one of the Kenya Defence Forces soldiers who tragically lost their lives in a helicopter crash in the Sindar area of Elgeyo Marakwet County. And just a week after the KDF helicopter carrying the former Chief of Defence Forces General Francis Ogola and other KDF officers crashed, suspected bandits raided Kamalogon village in Kapushen, Pokot South and killed a 7-year-old girl. Good evening once again. My name is Victor Moyakane, and with me along this journey is Catherine Simaloy on sign language. Welcome. The government has warned that it will forcefully move Kenyans living in flood-prone areas in a move to cushion Kenyans from further effects of floods. President William Ruto making this pronouncement following 2 devastating weeks occasioned by the raging fury of floods that has so far left 10,000 households homeless. Moigi William with more.
For the second week now, heavy downpour resulting to floods continue to be witnessed in different parts of the country, the extreme weather leading to deaths and destruction. According to figures from the Kenya Red Cross, 23 counties have been affected by floods, more than 20,000 families affected, with 10,000 families left homeless. In Nairobi alone, more than 10 people have been reported dead due to floods, and after a long silence, President William Ruto finally addressed the situation.
There are citizens living in very dangerous places, and those are the most vulnerable at this point. And I'm happy the Minister for Energy is here, so that we can begin to inform citizens if they are in places that poses danger to them, we begin to relocate them.
President Ruto adding that the National Youth Service will provide temporary shelter for affected families, although not giving a clear strategy that the government will put in place to avert further destruction by floods.
I think in that context, what are the flashpoints and how do we, ahead of time, deal with those flashpoints? How do we mobilize members of the National Government Administration to support all this effort?
These as Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua announced that a meeting has been scheduled for Friday, with floods being top of the agenda.
The outlook for the next week indicate that the country will receive above normal rainfall across the country. In that regard, all members of the public are urged to exercise caution while traveling and where they are in lowlands to move to higher grounds.
But as the national government now shifts its focus to floods, Kenyans for the better part of the past 2 weeks have been grappling with the pain and loss caused by floods. The Meteorological Department has predicted the rains will continue until June this year. Moigi William, TV47.
Now, in other news, the heavy rains being experienced in the country have left more than 60,000 people displaced and 38 people dead. Kenyans losing faith in the government's preparation in dealing with the effects of the floods. Our reporter Ruga Eval with the details.
we prepare for the challenges that will come with El Nino, and we have sufficient information to the people of Kenya.
In December last year, the Global Climate Forecast presented a letter revealing that heavy rains will be experienced in East Africa. According to the global forecast, they indicated that the rains to be received would be slightly high and were expected to start by the end of the year in 24 counties. However, it didn't rain as expected, and so many seemingly ignored the forecast.
Ile El Nino haitakuweko, wamesema kutakuwa tu na mvua kubwa, lakini haitafika pale ya kuharibu.
4 months later, the Kenyan Meteorological Department announced the rains which had already started gradually in the month of March this year.
The expected rainfall amount is likely to be above the long-term average for the season.
The rains began, and for a good fraction, in under 24 hours, the rains caused flooding. So far, more than 34 counties have been affected by the floods. In Nairobi, 26 schools, city roads and residential areas have also been affected, the floods disrupting daily activities as Kenyans remain doubtful of the government's readiness to mitigate destruction caused by the floods. Ruga Ival, TV47.
Now, following heavy rainfall across the country, residents of Malaria slums are now appealing to the government to get help after the floods continue to wreak havoc, claiming lives and leaving many of them displaced. The lack of government response has forced the community to rely solely on its resources to cope with the flooding and its aftermath.
This is the exact picture you'll encounter when visiting Malaria for air, with the residents here trying to salvage what is left and rebuilding the structures again for their families' shelter following heavy floods which marooned the area. The heavy rains that occurred on Tuesday night forced other residents out of their houses, with some having to seek refuge on the rooftops. The slow pace of the county government response has forced the community to rely solely on its resources to cope with the flooding and its aftermath.
Sasa ni kusaidia tu maskini vile inaweza endelea na maisha. Sio mambo ya kung'oa hawa waende wapi. Mtu kama mimi nimekuwa hapa 43 years. Unataka kunitoa sasa nitaenda wapi?
Rescue and search operations for missing individuals is underway, with the 4 bodies retrieved today. Frederick Ojiro is an officer from Haki Africa and is part of the response and emergency team.
Ni dhahiri shahiri familia ifike na wafikiwe na serikali ifike pia ione hali halisi vile iko, na waje tu kuambia watu hameni, wahame waende wapi? Wahame waende wapi? Hata wakihama wahame njaa. Kwa hivyo wacha serikali behave, let the government behave like a government.
With the schools expected to be opened next week, the situation remains dire for many of them as learning materials were swept away by raging floods. Survivors are now calling on the government to intervene quickly before the situation worsens.
Sasa serikali isaidie watu yake na chakula na tupate tu nafasi ya kukata, kama tutatoka kwa mto 30 mita, angalau turudishe ndio tupate vile tunaweza kaa.
Tuko katika ile hali ya wewe mwenyewe kujitetea. So hizi familia ukiangalia hapa waliponea na zile nguo wamevaa na zile kidogo pia zimelowa na maji. Sasa hata kifua hiyo nguo itakauka lini?
This is the current situation here in Madare Area 4, among many other areas in Nairobi County, with the residents calling upon the government to intervene, since many of them are grappling with the effects of floods. Nelson Mwareza, TV47, Nairobi.
Now, more than 100,000 people have been displaced in the country. This, of course, follows the heavy rains that have burst riverbanks, causing floods in more than 24 counties in the country. The floods have caused the death of more than 38 people, while others remain displaced. The displaced flood victims have been forced to camp in schools, dispensaries, or churches, with fears that schools may not be able to resume next week.
This is a clear picture that depicts the current situation in the country, where most people affected by the heavy rains causing floods and camping to at least get a place to lay their heads.
Ni shauri ya maji. Mvua inanyesha nyingi na maji imefika mpaka kwa nyumba. Sasa hatuna maisha tunaweza tukaishi. Ndipo tumeona kama tukuja hapa juu ya Simbi, ndipo tuwe na makao.
mpaka nikajirumia, nikashindwa nitafanya nini. Hata sina kitu ya kufunika. Wale watoto wangu hata kitabu ya kwenda shule mande sina yani, hata vile mnaniona hivi mimi sina hata pesa. Ni jirani ndiye amenisaidia.
Those displaced by the floods are facing challenges at the places where they are camping as they lack basic needs. Some say that they have fears that teenagers may easily get lured into engaging into bad behaviors, leading to the rise of teenage pregnancy.
I find that most of our girls are at risk of one, getting pregnant. We have the problems of early pregnancy, and they are at risk of even getting married at this point, because if someone offers a solution right now, it's easy to go with that.
School heads also fear that the affected families camping in schools will affect the opening of schools next week. The Education Principal Secretary Belio Kipsang has however said that the government has put up measures for schools to resume normally next week.
We've been blessed with quite some rain, and I know yesterday the President directed a multi-agency team to be able to deal with the challenges that have come with the rains, and these are part of the preparation of ensuring that our children will smoothly fit into their schools next week as we open.
Anastasia Mkabi, TV47.
Thank you, Anastasia, for that. Now, the body of a police officer who was last month swept away by raging floods in Nairobi's country bus station while trying to rescue 4 people marooned by floods is yet to be retrieved. On Wednesday, a multi-agency team embarked on an operation on the scene of his disappearance in a spirited effort to retrieve his body. Lennox Sangre with the details.
The hope of finding their beloved one is what parents of Kamukunji Police Officer David Chesire are still clinging to. At the famous Machakos bus station, the scene of crime where Constable David Chesire disappeared has once again become a place of interest in the search for the officer who was swept away while rescuing 4 stranded traders marooned by heavy rains pounding Nairobi. His distraught mother clinging on to hope.
Nilikuwa naomba tu nisaidiwe tu mtoto wangu apatikane. Na akipatikana nitarudishia Mungu shukrani. Nimekuwa na huzuni mingi sana.
Anafanya kazi mzuri ya serikali. Alifanya kazi mzuri. Akaokoa mwananchi. Ningependa tu serikali atupe nguvu kidogo, aongeze bali imefikia, tuone kama nipate nafasi ya kushika mtoto yangu.
The multi-agency team encompassing those from the National Police Service handling disasters and regular police pooled resources in the aftermath of seeing Chesire's body retrieved. Here, the bulldozers returned to the same site, with police officers believing Chesire is lying here, flanked with his AK-47 rifle.
This is the place of interest because this is the point where he fell. So from some kind of scientific modeling, we are sure that he may still be here because we have scored the river up to Ruai. We have not found any leads. So we are now coming back to the point where he was swept away.
Amid the pounding rains in the country, Chesire's family, including his wife, father, mother, and nuclear family members, have been camping here at the site to retrieve their son.
Mwanzo nilisema nilimuomba Mungu anipe nguvu ya kustahimili yote nilipopata habari, na nimeona mkono wake.
According to the police privy to the investigations, new details have emerged of the decomposing body of a police officer that was retrieved around River Wote, awaiting post-mortem to ascertain the identity. The officer, who was in the company of his colleagues when they came across 3 women and a child trapped in one of the stalls where a concrete slab had caved in. The 10 p.m. incident saw the officers quickly swing into action, successfully rescuing 4. However, Chesire went back to lock the doors before being swept away. Chesire was swept away together with his rifle and AK-47. It is nearly 2 months since Constable David Chesire was swept away by the marauding waters. With those spearheading this operation, believe that they will retrieve him. Lennox Sengre, TV47, Nairobi.
We want to take a short break. After that spate of very depressing stories, we'll be right back with more. Please keep it right here.
Na safari hii katika Mfahamu Kiongozi tutakuletea viongozi aina mbalimbali.
Nikuwe na Nisani kama 10 na pia nikuwe menua minibus. Minibus nikoniwa.
Kushinda unaangalia simu ya mzee. Soma Biblia ama ingia kwa washroom ujisugue mpaka nimetoa hivi.
I don't know whether any of my children would want to get into the political field. Sijajua bado.
Kila Alhamisi saa 1:30 kuendelea.
Join us on a journey through the concrete jungles and rising skylines, where every beam, every nail tells a story of progress and vision.
In every aspect of life, you know, you have to look at several dynamics.
From groundbreaking.
Nowadays with the tech, you can check on different websites or you check online and you can see some inspiration. So at least that one would be a direction already. I'll know like what kind of style you're going for.
To finishing touches, witness the dedication of the hard-working teams who bring these
Welcome back. If you're joining us right now, this is the Daily Report on Thursday, and we are here. My name is Victor Muyakane, together with Catherine Simaloy, giving you the absolute latest from across your world. Now, as the doctors' strike enters its 43rd day, the doctors maintain that the strike is still on, with the weekly demos set to resume next week. On the other hand, the Ministry of Health has called on the healthcare providers to go back to work and save the ailing health sector. Elizabeth Atieno now reports.
Strengthened by doctors' solidarity, the Kenya Medical Practitioners, Pharmacists and Dentists Union now says they will not relent in fighting for the rights of medical interns, just a day after Public Service CS Moses Kuria maintained that the government will not pay the interns the 206,000 Kenya shillings that they are demanding.
We are now back to our 19 demands in full, in total, because we do not trust their words.
We are saying that we had negotiated 7 years ago, and therefore we should not be used as guinea pigs for wage bill.
And as the push and pull between the medics and the government intensifies, Health CS Susan Akumicha has yet again extended an olive branch to the striking medics, urging them to resume work so as to solve the medical interns issue.
We have been talking, we have had very good progress, 18 out of 19 issues resolved, 6.1 billion shillings given to doctors. Please come back to work. Let's discuss that one small thing. The Bible says, whoever does not work does not eat.
From next week, Tuesday, we're going to resume our weekly demonstration.
The government has since maintained that it can only afford to pay the medical interns 70,000 monthly, and now the doctors say they will respond by not generating revenue for the country.
And if not so, then we want to offer free services to Kenyans because we are not paid, because we cannot be generating revenue for this country, and we are not paid, we are not remunerated.
It has been saying propaganda that they offered us 18 out of the 19 issues, but I must say that they have not.
Doctors say threatening them with sacking is similar to threatening a fish with drowning, adding that the government should fire all of them and not just specific doctors. Elizabeth Atieno, TV47, Nairobi.
Now, hundreds of friends and family members were among those who turned up for the burial of Sergeant Rose Nyawira, who was among the Kenya Defence Force personnel who lost their lives in a helicopter crash in the Sindar area of Elgeyo Marakwet County. Tributes were poured over the memory of the sergeant, being eulogized as a bubbly lady who was obedient and hardworking. Nyawira served as a photographer for the Chief of Defence Forces press. She leaves behind a 3-year-old son.
Emotions were at high today at Kagia Town in Mwea East Sub-County, Kirinyaga County during the burial of Sergeant Rose Nyawira. Sergeant Rose, who was among the military officers who met their sudden death following a helicopter crash at Sindar, Elgeyo Marakwet, has been eulogized by friends and family as an obedient and hardworking lady. Her uncle, Philip Mwangi, read a heartfelt tribute from Rose's father, who was overwhelmed with emotions.
He was a doting father who worked with her. Let us face it, a child is a special gift in the life of a parent.
The burial ceremony that was attended by hundreds of family members and friends saw Rose being showered with praise.
One quality, that is loyalty.
Kenya Air Force Deputy Commander Brigadier Peter Kithinji condoled with the family, eulogizing Rose as someone who was committed to her duty to the country.
Nobody knows the day and the way, but eventually we'll all leave this world. It's a transition.
Sergeant Rose Nyawira has left behind a 3-year-old son. Elsewhere in Alego Songa, the family of Sergeant Clifford Somondi are making preparations for the burial of their son, who met the same fate on the 18th April crash.
We are planning to bury Clifford on 3rd of May 2024.
The helicopter crash claimed the lives of 10 officers, including Chief of Defence Forces Francis Ogola, who was buried on Sunday, April 21st in Siaya County. Vera Alberta, TV47.
Now, barely days after the KDF chopper carrying the former and late Chief of Defence Forces, General Francis Ogola, alongside other KDF officers, crashed at Sindar along the West Pokot and Elgeyo Marakwet counties border, suspected bandits have raided the Kamalogon village in Kapushen, Pokot South, along the West Pokot and Elgeyo Marakwet border, killing a 7-year-old girl who was in the company of other girls while looking after her parents' animals. Chichi Josephine now tells us more.
A 7-year-old girl who was in the company of other 3 girls was killed by suspected bandits who raided Kamalogon village in Pokot South.
Sasa tumeenda sasa kiwango ingine ambayo sio binadamu sasa. Mtu anatoa uhai mtoto ya chini ya miaka 6 ama 5. Mtoto msichana. Tunaona hii ni uhalifu hali ya juu, na kumbe tuko tunaishi na majirani ambao wako na wakora hali ya juu, wako na criminals.
The bandits are also reported to have driven away with a known number of livestock, which were later recovered by National Police Reservists, together with the Anti-Stock Theft Unit Police, who are able to respond to the attack as soon as possible.
Hakuna kitu hii mtoto alikuwa naye, walikaa chini kuchunga mbuzi yao. Na wakaona ingekuwa hafadhali hii mtu wachukue hii mtoto waende walishe tu kuliko kuwawa.
Hii sasa imepita ile kiwango ya wakora kutembea, kwa sababu hii jambo ambalo imefanyika ni jambo la aibu.
The body of the deceased Shelen Juliasia was later collected at the scene by the police officers and taken to Kapenguria County Referral Hospital mortuary for post-mortem. Locals have also decried the high cases of insecurity being witnessed in the area, calling on the security team to move with speed and calm the situation.
Kwa hivyo mimi nataka kusema serikali waingilie kati,
na tungetaka tuambie komiti ya amani ya upande wa Kabieko waitishe mkutano haraka.
Tapat, a member of County Assembly Samuel Koreanyang, claimed that for a long time the security officers in the area are never willing to help, calling on the Interior Ministry to transfer them to other places where there are minimal cases of insecurity. Chichi Josephine, TV47.
President William Ruto has officially opened Bunge Towers, cautioning members of parliament over the launch of the Bunge Towers, which cost the taxpayers about 9.6 billion shillings. And the warning is that this is bound to attract more scrutiny and accountability on their mandate. As our senior parliamentary reporter, Elizabeth Mutuku, reports, President Ruto emphasized that lawmakers now have no excuse in delivering on their mandate to the electorate, given the improved infrastructural amenities.
Today, President William Ruto led top government officials and parliamentary leadership to commissioning the long-awaited Bunge Tower. President Ruto and other leaders calling for cost-cutting measures concerning committee meetings, which, according to the House leadership, incurred significant expenses when held outside Parliament buildings. National Assembly Majority Leader Kimani Ichung'wah says that a single committee meeting could amount to 1.5 million Kenya shillings per day.
Now that we have all the facilities here, the meeting rooms, committee meeting rooms, I hope I will see a significant drop, Mr. Speaker, in the budget of Parliament.
Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua urging MPs to refrain from enjoying the comfort of Bunge Towers, adding that they should prioritize their responsibility to electorate and focus on service delivery. His sentiments were also echoed by Prime Cabinet Secretary Musalia Mudavadi.
Sasa hiyo comfort nimeona pale, mkaekae hapo Friday mteremuke mashinani. Hapo ndio maneno iko, because hapa ni mzuri lakini maneno iko pale.
Comes with elevated competition. I'm sure politicians out in the field are now looking at this. Mujichunge sana wajumbe.
And this also could be a blessing in disguise for the public should they implement the cost-cutting vision by the leadership of Parliament. National Assembly Speaker Moses Wetangula allayed fears that money had been embezzled ever since the construction of the facility began in the year 2014, castigating those spewing vitriol on the project.
To allay the skeptics who have been pouring vitriol on the structure, the rejectionists, and many others who have been saying many things. This building is here. We will use it, and it will serve the purpose for which it was meant.
Therefore, for this project, Your Excellency, if I were to be asked, I would give it a clean bill of health.
Elizabeth Mutuku, TV47, Nairobi.
Now, President William Ruto's UDA party faces the ultimate test tomorrow when the party holds its first grassroots elections, with more than 180,000 candidates contesting for the polls that will be held across 5 counties. UDA National Elections Board Chairman Anthony Mwara says that the party is ready for the polls and warned that the party will not spare anyone implicated in rigging or causing chaos in this season. Apollo Kamau reports.
President William Ruto's 2027 re-election vehicle UDA faces a date with destiny on Friday as the party holds its first ever grassroots poll, which will also be the first electronically spread across 5 counties: Nairobi, Homa Bay, Busia, West Pokot and Narok.
We are good to go. We would like to urge our voters to be very peaceful, desist from violence, voter bribery, and we have said it categorically. And we are serious about that. Anybody who will be involved in violence or rigging or bribery will be automatically disqualified.
UDA party headquarters was a beehive of activity as party clerks were busy collecting the voting tablets procured at a cost of 10,000 shillings each from China for the crucial exercise that will kick off tomorrow at 9 a.m. and close at 3 p.m. with results expected a minute after voting. 181,000 party-registered aspirants will participate in the first phase of the poll that will be held in 2,985 polling centers. UDA is sparing no efforts for a smooth poll, including standby helicopters, assuring aspirants of security in zones deemed to be hostile to the party, while saying election disputes will have to be lodged 48 hours after voting and be cleared by the party's Electoral Disputes Resolution Committee in 7 days. UDA will be using this grassroots election to consolidate its support, and more so in opposition zones, as President William Ruto lays the ground for his re-election in 2027. Apul Kamar, TV47, at the party headquarters.
In the latest twist to the ongoing fertilizer scandal, Bumula Member of Parliament Jackson Wamboka has filed a notice of motion to impeach Agriculture CS Mithika Linturi. The Member of Parliament says the motion already has backing from 110 lawmakers, while also calling for the National Assembly Speaker Moses Wetangula to approve the motion for debate early next week. Emery Kisawa with more.
Impeachment of Honorable Franklin Mithika Linturi.
There is seemingly nowhere left to turn for the Cabinet Secretary for Agriculture, Mithika Linturi, after Bumula Member of Parliament Jackson Wamboka filed a notice of motion to impeach him.
We presented our notice of motion to the Speaker yesterday, backed by 110 members of National Assembly.
This comes just days after KEL Chemicals operational manager Devesh Patel sensationally claimed that he was summoned to the NCPB offices after the matter gained media traction and was compelled to admit that the fertilizer his company distributed between the 5th of March and March 21st was substandard.
Esther Gari, she was telling me, no, you, what do you call, unar, means in Kiswahili na wanasema wachana nane ni hii mwindi yote anatengeneza mali baya sana. Mimi nataka funga factory.
The head of public service Felix Kosgei allegedly later joined them in the meeting at about 7 p.m. asking him to recant his statements on the circumstances surrounding the distribution of the controversial fertilizer.
Mr. Kosgei said, let's stop this everything. He called the police and said, take this guy to the cell. We have I've been forced to write. They told me to write that batch because they said already we have announced in the media, so you can't change.
The Cabinet Secretary fielded questions when he was summoned to Parliament to answer questions relating to the fake fertilizer scandal.
Nini makosa imetokea chini ya program yako? Wewe hujajiuzulu mpaka leo. Actions are done, and then national we have a multi-agency committee that is being done. The DCI is doing a good job. All these are ongoing. We really cannot really make conclusions.
The walls are closing in.
He must go by all means necessary.
Kisawa Emory, TV47.
Let's take a short break. We'll be right back after this.
Na safari hii katika Mfahamu Kiongozi, Tutakuletea viongozi aina mbalimbali.
Nikuwe na nisani kama 10 na pia nikuwe menua minibus. Minibus nikoniwa.
Kushinda unaangalia simu ya mzee. Soma Biblia ama ingia kwa washroom ujisugue. Mpaka nimetoa hivi.
I don't know whether any of my children would want to get into the political field. Sijajua bado.
Kila Alhamisi saa 1:30 kuendelea.
Join us on a journey through the concrete jungles and rising skylines, where every beam, every nail tells a story of progress and vision.
In every aspect of life, you know, you have to look at several dynamics.
From groundbreaking.
Nowadays with the tech, you can check on different websites or you check online and you can see some inspiration. So at least that one would be a direction already. I'll know like what kind of style you're going for.
To finishing touches, witness the dedication of the hard-working teams who bring these ambitious dreams to reality. The Realtor, Tuesdays at 6:30 p.m.
Now, malaria continues to be a formidable enemy in Kenya, where it heavily impacts on the most vulnerable people in spite of decades-long intense efforts to combat it. Experts and medical professionals highlight the several obstacles that are causing it to spread, such as environmental causes and poor access to healthcare. Furthermore, Kisumu County is recognized as a malaria hotspot, which leads to the request for more financing in order to meet the challenging objective of eliminating malaria. Anudida reports.
Malaria, transmitted through the bite of infected mosquitoes, has long plagued Kenya with devastating consequences for its communities. Despite progress, the disease remains a significant public health concern, particularly affecting vulnerable populations such as children and pregnant women.
When a mother is pregnant, the malaria parasites tend to go and embed into the placenta. They go and attach into the placenta of the growing baby, and then it gets very, very difficult to treat.
Limited access to healthcare, inadequate funding, and environmental factors continue to fuel the spread of malaria in Kenya, but the impact goes beyond health, hindering economic development and perpetuating cycles of poverty.
If diagnostics, we use about 4 million diagnostics per year for malaria. That's a lot of money, and our diagnostics minimum is 300 shillings.
And as the world celebrates World Malaria Day, efforts to combat malaria continue, with organizations in Kenya implementing a range of prevention and control measures, from distributing insecticide-treated bed nets to educating communities on prevention methods, initiatives that are making a difference in communities that are most affected.
We've found out that we can fight malaria as a collective. But if there is no individual responsibility, then we will not be able to achieve zero malaria in the country.
The Zero Malaria Campaign Coalition, under the initiative Down the Power of Everyone campaign, seeks to give every Kenyan the opportunity to play their part in the national goal of zero malaria and ending the deadly disease for good.
Yes, the interventions are there. We've gotten a lot of support from the Global Fund and other financiers as far as resources is concerned. But how are we utilizing these resources?
Amidst the grim statistics of Kisumu County being on the hotspots of malaria spread are the voices of those directly impacted by it. Their stories shed light on the human toll of the disease and underscore the importance of collective action.
We usually have so many cases of malaria, and it's because of, I think, the lake around, plus how we live in our environments at home.
Na ukienda kwenye vituo vya hospitali ama kwenye kliniki unapata
madawa haipo.
Kenya's dedication to eradicating malaria is evident through its outlined strategic objectives in the Kenya Malaria Strategy for the period of 2019 to 2023. The plan aims not only to alleviate the burden of malaria within the country, but also to contribute to the global aspiration of eliminating malaria by 2030. The objective of the KMS revolve around safeguarding vulnerable populations, effectively managing malaria cases, promoting the utilization of interventions, and bolstering surveillance mechanisms. Ann Odida, TV47.
All right, thank you for staying with us throughout this time. Now is the time when we shift gears and we want to enter into the interview segment. And this is the time where we release our sign language interpreter, Catherine Simaloy. Thank you, Catherine. You've been an excellent co-presenter on this journey. Thank you so much. Now it's time for Insight Tonight. And this entire month of April has been the Autism Awareness, or rather Autism Acceptance Month in some other areas. We're all about autism, raising awareness for it, raising acceptance for it. For those of us who have children with autism, those of us who are on the autism spectrum, it's about acceptance and awareness. And tonight we are joined by none other than Dr. Elizabeth Bukusi. Karibu sana.
Thank you.
It's been an absolute pleasure to host you the other time. Just before you did something absolutely major, something big, massive, you conquered something, a mountain, so to speak.
You know, mountains are very difficult to conquer. So I wouldn't say that I conquered it, but I would say that I did climb Mount Kenya to the third highest peak. That's Point Lenana.
I'll tell you this, that's a hell of a lot higher than I've ever climbed, or many of us have ever climbed. So you have conquered it. It's something big. Can you just, I mean, we had you in studio just before you went, on this major quest. I believe you were still making the preparations. Talk to us about what it takes to prepare for such a climb.
That's a really good question, Victor. I think the biggest thing it takes is not so much the physical fitness, but the mental fitness. We climb with our mind more than we climb with any other part of our bodies. Because it doesn't matter how fit you are, you will get to a point where you will get tired physically. You will also get to a point where the altitude gets to you, the air gets thinner. You are likely to lose your appetite, you'll struggle with drinking water, you may feel nauseated. Sleep is very difficult when you're at high altitudes. So you get to a point where mind over matter really takes over. And you need to be able to say to yourself, I can do that one more step. I can push a little further. I will not quit. I will keep going. So your mind is what needs to be even fitter than your body, to have an attitude that says, I will not quit, I will not lay down, I will keep trying.
One foot in front of the other.
Just one more step, one foot in front of the other.
Wow. And you did say that at that time when you came here, that there is a connection, there's a similarity between getting ready and preparing for climbing a mountain and actually looking after or heading into a situation of looking after a child or a person on the autism scale. Talk to us about how those two relate.
I think those two are really closely related because for parents with children who have autism or parents who have children who have special needs, there is no break. Every day is a struggle. They wake up not knowing what the day is going to bring, and that's what it's like on the mountain. You cannot predict the weather. You carry everything you need because you don't know what you're going to need. It may look like it's very sunny when you start off, but it can suddenly start raining. Like on the day we started climbing, it was what looked like a beautiful sunny day. And then the heavens opened up. It rained and it kept raining. And you keep thinking, okay, it's going to stop. It doesn't stop. It keeps raining for hours on end. It's the same thing with parents who have children with special needs. There's no break. There's a challenge today, there's a new challenge tomorrow, there's a challenge in the afternoon. You wake up and every day you're just taking it one day at a time because you don't know what's going to happen. It's very hard to predict because things change for them in a world that is so different for them because they experience the world in a very different way from us. So that's what it's like when you're climbing the mountain, that it's difficult. And for those parents, they have to keep saying, I can't quit. I can't give up. I cannot give up on my child and decide I will not try anymore. So they have to keep going, even on those days when you wake up and it's challenging. Because there are simple things like it costs a lot to provide therapy, to get occupational therapy, to get speech therapy, to take them into school. They may stay in diapers longer because it's harder for them to get potty trained, especially if they're nonverbal and they can't explain to you that they need to go or they need to have a change. So everything takes longer than it would be. So it's really that attitude of never say die. You keep trying regardless of what each day is like.
Right. Now, with the mountain, you chose to do this. You prepared for it. You accumulated the resources needed, the clothing, the equipment and everything. And like you said, mentally prepared for it. But for somebody who is going into hospital, expecting to receive their bundle of joy, be it their son or daughter, or in your case, their grandchild, it appears that nothing prepares you for that.
You're absolutely right. Nobody ever imagines that they're the ones who are going to have a special needs child or a special needs grandchild. Everybody imagines at the end of time when, and we say, I'm an obstetrician gynecologist, and we jokingly say the longest we can ever wait is 9 months.
Right.
At 9 months, you know, a decision has to be made.
Right.
But everybody expects their bundle of joy, as you say, will be okay, perfectly normal, will hit the milestones. And for many parents, you won't know immediately. Because it's not as if when the baby is born, you'll be able to tell that there's something. But somewhere along the way, you may notice something a little different. When it's their first child, they may not notice it as easily because they don't know any different.
There's nothing to compare it to.
There's nothing to compare. But then at some point, you may pick up the milestones aren't quite happening. Maybe they're not picking up words in the same way. Maybe they're not making eye contact. Maybe they're a little slower in doing certain things. Nothing prepares you to be able to have a child with special needs. So it's almost like learning on the job. Just like a lot of parenting is learning on the job. You get the child and you learn to parent. Most other things we first train, you go to school, and then you get the certificate. Here, the certificate is handed to you in the form of a live baby. Then you need to figure out what to do with the baby. And so nothing ever prepares you. And so it's a difficult journey because you learn it on the fly.
Wow. And another thing about it is we, like you said, nobody expects, nobody prepares for that. It also appears that in our society, we have learned to only accept a certain kind of bundle of joy. If this bundle of joy ticks X, Y, Z box, then we know, okay, this is indeed a bundle of joy. But if there's something different, then there's less of that joy. Why do you think this is so?
I think this is true of humans in many different spaces. That we have an element where we try to crowd together and we want similarity. This is where things like peer pressure comes in. We all want to fit in. We want to be a certain way. And if someone or something is different from what we're used to, then we don't accept them as easily. And sadly, in many of these spaces, stigma comes about. And so when one encounters or experiences a child who has autism, the chances are most people think, this child is not well behaved, or the parents did something inappropriate, or the parents are not teaching them well. Why is this child, making a lot of noise? Why are they covering their ears? Why are they not looking at me in the eye? Why will they not respond to me and greet me? How can a child who's 5 or 6 not be able to shake hands and say hello? And so there's a lot of stigma that's associated with it without people understanding that they are children and they are people who process the world differently. The way we perceive information and process it is not the same for them. And that overwhelm of information, that overwhelm of light and noise, and people staring at them, and senses.
An assault to the senses.
It's just too much. It's pain, it's discomfort. And so they don't know how to relate to it. One of the things that they struggle with is just the normal social cues. The way we watch people's body language and you think, okay, that's a person I don't want to perhaps interact with. They don't pick up those cues as easily. And so they struggle with things like that, but people stigmatize them and just think, well, there's something wrong with them and put them aside. And even in school, they will often be the child who's punished or who's not treated well. And it's not because they're not necessarily bright or they don't understand. Just because they may not verbalize it in the same way or relate in the same social way or be a little socially awkward, then they tend to be marginalized.
In your experience, from the time of, I imagine as part of your training as a medic, you definitely learnt about this. And then I'm sure you encountered other people like this. But compare, just take us through the comparison of what you knew intellectually versus what you knew experientially with your grandchild.
The reality is what you know just from academics doesn't cut it at all. Because you learn about it, but you learn about so many things in medical school that you only pay attention to the things that are important for passing exams or practicing on a day-to-day basis. Now, because I'm not a pediatrician, I had the experience of working with children, but it was more children who were physically sick from some ailment. This is a specialized area, children with neurodevelopmental disorders. They would more likely go to a specialist. And even in this area, our knowledge and our information and our research has grown in the last few years. For a long time, people didn't quite know how to classify them, where to treat them. Was it a mental illness? Was it something, completely weird? So there hasn't been as much information as there could have been. So even though I read about it in medical school, it didn't really touch home. It really only came home to me when now I had a grandchild who I could see was a little bit different. And then the reality hits you, because then simple things, like you go on a family holiday, and then you realize the music that people play, even in a hotel lobby, is loud. Because the little boy would be very uncomfortable. He would be covering his ears, sounds that other people weren't even noticing.
Right.
So the experiential part of it just makes you realize how difficult their world is and how simple things that we take for granted, they can't.
And really on that point, then one of the questions I would like to ask is, what should we do as a community, as a society, to make it easier for those of us who are different, who process things differently, who have a different interaction with the things we consider to be everyday things? What can we do? What can we do? What can we restructure? Paint a picture of the society you want to see.
I think, first of all, I'd like to say thank you very much for even creating this forum, because this raising awareness for me is one of the first steps, just talking about it. Because often people don't want to talk. These are the children people want to lock up. When they go out for social functions, they leave them behind because it's too difficult to deal with their challenges. Just talking about it for me is a very important first step, so that they don't become the hidden population no one sees. They are part of us. They're just like us. They don't choose. They find themselves gifted, or they find themselves in that specific situation. So talking about it for me is number one. Number two is acceptance. Recognizing we are different. Each and every one of us is different. Those on the spectrum may just be a little more different than we are, but they're people just like you and me. They need love, they need acceptance. They need an opportunity to be able to have the platform in which to develop their skills and their talents. And many of these individuals are actually very gifted. It's only that unless they get the support that allows them to be able to bring out their giftedness, they do not then show it. A lot of work that has been done in this area of research shows that in the Silicon Valley, in California, there's a lot of autistic children. And it's been seen that, in fact, a lot of the people who are highly functioning on the spectrum are the ones who have been gifted the world with a lot of developments, especially in the technical field.
The tech fact, yes.
Because they think differently.
And music as well.
Exactly. So because they think out of the box, they're able to come up with new things that the rest of us who think in a more structured way are not really able to identify and come up with. So it's that acceptance, it's that giving everybody an opportunity to be able to be the best that they can be.
Right.
And then reducing the stigma. Seek to understand. Don't rush to make conclusions. Don't rush to make assumptions about somebody you meet or a child you meet. Don't rush to assume that you know what it is that they're going through or what they are or what diagnosis they have. Have an open mind and be willing to explore and to find out what they're experiencing. Put yourself in their shoes so that you can understand them.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. And now, speaking of awareness, you and your wonderful team have done a big thing. You've gone up a mountain to raise awareness. Talk to us about what sort of impact you have seen since you started to interact with this till now. Talk to us about the impact you've seen of this entire month of focus on awareness and acceptance. What have you seen change?
I'm not sure that I've seen anything change, but for me, the greatest surprise has been literally everywhere where I've had a conversation, somebody has said, I know someone. I know a child. I know a young adult. I know a teenager. Oh, so that's what it was. They remember somebody in school, somebody they interacted with. And then they say, I didn't realize, I didn't know. So what has surprised me is just how much there is and how everybody you speak to literally comes up to say, oh yeah, there is somebody I know. Now I know. I was in a meeting in South Africa during this period of time. It was a meeting on mentorship in science. And when I mentioned it, and I mentioned it specifically because my nails are very colorful. This isn't the usual color of my nails, and especially not from...
Oh, is that so?
Yes. But
I just
part
thought
of the
it was
nail,
stylish.
No, this is stylish for autism.
Oh, brilliant.
This has been part of raising awareness, diversity, difference.
Hang on, could my cameraman just focus on these nails for a little bit, please? Yes, just keep them up.
I'll keep them up. So this has been part of the challenge, just talking about diversity and differences and color.
So what do your nails actually represent? You do say diversity. I see a diversity of styles, of patterns, of color and everything.
Yes, so this has been the challenge, telling people, color your nails. This is a conversation starter, so we can talk about autism. We can talk about differences and the beauty that can actually come from the diversity and differences that there are. So when I was in South Africa and someone noticed my nails and asked about it, and I talked about it, and they said, you know what? My niece is on the spectrum. And then someone else told me, my friend has a daughter on the spectrum. The conversations just went on and on.
Wow.
Literally, there were very many individuals who were aware of somebody with special needs.
Wow. And how, just how important, how much of a game changer is this awareness, the conversation beginning and, you know, people making connections to this, just how important, help us understand, because I'm sure there are people that are wondering, okay, so we know about it, halafu sasa, you know.
Halafu sasa, we can continue to talk about it, and now we can move to the next step of starting to say, what can you do? What can I do to make a difference? What do we need to ask for? What do these children need? What do their caregivers need? How can we make a difference? If the next time there's a parent who has a child who's autistic and they meet someone who's heard us talk about it, this person is not judging them. This person says, what can I do to help? This person asks somebody, reduce the noise, reduce the volume of the music. This person goes out to be kinder rather than stigmatizing and judging that parent. Then I think already we are on the right road and we're making an impact.
Oh, great, great. Absolutely, absolutely. Tell me, so we've had a month of awareness and acceptance, at least higher than normal efforts. What other efforts do you have, and for the people in your association and the people in the institute and the people who are doing a lot of great work on this subject, what sort of things are planned, you know, down the road in the course of the year that other people can plug into? Events perhaps that you've got coming up that people can join in or participate to learn, to equip themselves, to be able to handle any situation that comes, to be able to approach the issue with empathy and so on. What is on the calendar?
I would refer them to the Eastern African Academy of Childhood Disabilities.
Brilliant. Just hang in there for a second. Good people, I hope you have your pens and whatever keyboards ready. Please go.
Eastern African Academy of Childhood Disabilities. They're on Facebook, they're on Instagram, they have a website. One of the good things about their website is they actually have resources, resources that one can utilize. They have a helpline that is on 24/7. People can get help. People can seek an opportunity to have an audience, to have someone be able to give them an ear, and just to be able to point you to the right resources to be able to get help for your children. They are working, and people from the East African Academy of Childhood Disorders, those who are on the board, are working with various government agencies to see how can we ensure that even at other places, in the different counties, people start to raise awareness so that they can pick up these children who perhaps are not developing as would be expected. Can we have early diagnosis? Are there ways where we can start to refer people to treatment? The opportunity to raise awareness, to ask for what government support can be available, what funds can be made available within the funding cycles we already have within government. Because every little bit, whether it's physiotherapy, occupational therapy, speech therapy, everything costs. And for many parents, it becomes unaffordable. How can we ensure that we are channeling them to the right resources and that they get the support they need to be able to give these children the best chance to be able to live an integrated and fulfilled life?
Excellent, excellent. Listen, I'll tell you this for sure. We had you on with your other colleague, Dr. Kate, the first time.
Yes.
It was wonderful. We had amazing feedback. Lots of people were curious about it. You've gone up the mountain. You've done something big, attention grabber for sure. Now people are talking about it some more. We're able to have this conversation. I've seen you've painted your nails, which is quite amazing, quite interesting, and they're quite colorful. And I know they're wonderful as a conversation starter. What else would you advise people out there, just as a takeaway? What else would you advise people out there to do to be able to ramp up more attention on this very, very worthy topic?
I would say start the conversation. Please keep talking. Just look around you. You will notice somebody who could do with a little bit of extra kindness. Just a little bit of extra kindness. Just look around you and you will find a caregiver who's tired, a caregiver for whom every day is a step up the mountain. One more tired step when they feel like they wish they could quit, but they cannot quit. If you can extend a hand of just kindness, helping in whatever way you can, making that difference. Just that smile, just that understanding goes a long way in helping a harassed caregiver who really feels like this is too much. So I would just say each one of us can make a difference. If we can just accept the fact that people are different, they do not choose. But once they're there, it's our responsibility to embrace them as part of their community and give them what we can to help their lives be better.
Right. Dr. Bukusi, always a pleasure, and it's been an absolute pleasure even this time. And I don't even think I can add anything to what you've said. And so just to let that percolate, I would like to end it here. But rest assured, we'll have you back again to another conversation so we can see how to take this forward. A little bit of kindness. Look around you and just extend a little bit of kindness to those around. That's my biggest takeaway from what you're saying. And it will go a very long way into making a difference in somebody's life. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you very much for having me.
Once again, what is the name of that website?
The Eastern African Academy for Childhood Disability.
And you said there's a 24-hour helpline.
There's a 24-hour helpline.
Excellent. There you go. You can make a call, you can ask questions, you can be assisted, you can get information, you can get assistance of any kind. Please make that call. Thank you so much once again.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you. Good people, that has been Insight Tonight, and up next is your weekly dose of supercharged sporting content with VAR, with Askofu himself, the bishop, coming up right after this. Good night. My name is Victor Muyakane. God bless you.